Ava Bennett is a young single mother just trying to make it through each day with her little daughter, Mia. When she attends the wedding of an old friend, she expects a few hours of celebration, nothing more. But everything changes when she is publicly humiliated by the groom's wealthy family, leaving her feeling small, embarrassed, and painfully judged. Just when Ava thinks the day couldn't get any worse, a stranger named steps forward to defend her. Guess what happened next? Let's go back to how this story began. On that day, inside, the church buzzed with excitement. It was a Saturday afternoon wedding that everyone in town had been talking about for months. Lila Harper, the bride, was marrying Lucas Caldwell, the son of one of the wealthiest families in the county. Lucas, in his early 30s, had built his fortune in real estate, and the wedding reflected every bit of the family's wealth. Flowers flown in from across the country, an extravagant reception planned at a nearby country club, and guests dressed in their finest attire. Among the crowd, near the back of the church, sat Ava Bennett. At 28, her long brown hair fell gently past her shoulders, and her soft hazel eyes scanned the ornate decorations with a mix of awe and apprehension. She wore a simple white dress, delicate and modest, clearly not designer, but it suited her gentle presence. Nestled against her was her daughter, Mia, a curious and wide-eyed 5-year-old with soft brown curls and a quiet wonder that seemed to take in everything. Mia wore a cream-colored dress that Ava had sewn herself, staying up late for several nights to finish the delicate lace and embroidery. In her small arms, Mia clutched a stuffed rabbit, a comforting presence in a world that was often unpredictable. Ava hadn't really wanted to attend the wedding. When the invitation had arrived 2 months ago, she'd hesitated, thinking of the long drive from her small apartment on the outskirts of town and the questions that would inevitably come from old friends and neighbors. She and Lila had been close in college, sharing late-night talks and dreams about the future. But everything had changed when Ava became pregnant and had to leave school, her life taking a hard turn that led her to work multiple jobs just to make ends meet. Still, Lila had reached out through social media a few months ago, insisting that Ava come. "You were such an important part of my life," she had written. "I want you there." So here she was, holding Mia's hand in the bright afternoon sunlight, standing among people who had lived lives far different from hers. The ceremony itself was beautiful. Lila glowed in her elegant dress, every step down the aisle capturing the eyes of everyone present. The vows were heartfelt, the kind of promises that made people in the pews smile and even tear up a little. When Lucas kissed his bride, the room erupted in applause, and Ava clapped too, smiling genuinely even as a small ache tugged at her chest, a quiet reminder of dreams that had once seemed possible but had never come true. After the ceremony, guests streamed outside to take photographs before heading to the lavish reception. Ava gently guided Mia toward the gravel parking area, intending to slip away quietly, content with having fulfilled her obligation to an old friend. But just as she reached the edge of the lot, a sharp voice called out, "Ava Bennett." Turning, Ava saw a tall woman approaching, probably in her mid-60s, with perfectly styled gray hair and a dress that clearly cost more than Ava's apartment rent. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, locked onto Ava's daughter for a split second before returning to Ava herself. "Mrs. Caldwell," Ava said politely, stepping protectively in front of Mia. "Congratulations. It was a beautiful ceremony." Mrs. Caldwell's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Yes, it was. I'm surprised to see you here. I didn't realize you were still in touch with Lila." "We've reconnected recently," Ava said carefully. "She invited us." Mrs. Caldwell's gaze drifted downward to Mia, who peeked out from behind her mother's legs. Her expression hardened ever so slightly. "I see. And this is your daughter?" "Yes, this is Mia. She's 5. Ava's voice stayed steady, though her stomach twisted. "And her father?" Mrs. Caldwell asked, her tone sharp. Ava's cheeks warmed, but she kept her composure. "He's not with us. It's just the two of us." A tense silence fell, the kind that made Ava feel as if everyone in the parking lot was holding their breath. Finally, Mrs. Caldwell's voice cut through like ice. "Well, I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. This is a family celebration. We didn't realize Lila had invited someone, in your situation. I'm sure you understand that we have certain standards here." Ava's chest tightened. She understood perfectly. This is a church event, a celebration of marriage and family values. Your presence with a child born out of wedlock, it's inappropriate. I'm going to have to ask you to leave." The words landed like a blow. Gasps rippled among nearby guests. Mia pressed closer to Ava, sensing her mother's distress even if she didn't understand the reason. Mrs. Caldwell, Ava began, her voice firm despite the tremble, I was invited. Lila wanted me here. I haven't done anything wrong. You've brought shame into a house of God, Mrs. Caldwell snapped. Please leave before you ruin my son's wedding. Ava felt tears prick her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She wouldn't give her humiliation the satisfaction of showing. Then a voice cut through the tension like sunlight through clouds. That's enough. Everyone turned. Standing a few yards away was a man Ava had noticed during the ceremony, though she hadn't paid much attention before. He was in his late 30s, with dark hair and striking blue eyes, dressed in a navy suit that fit perfectly. There was a confidence in the way he stood, a quiet authority that made people notice him without effort. Julian Moore, though Ava didn't know his name yet, was Lucas Caldwell's business partner and the best man. I'm ashamed to hear what just happened, Julian said, his voice steady. Ava was invited by Lila. She's a guest. She deserves respect. Mrs. Caldwell's face reddened with anger. This is a family matter. It doesn't concern you. It concerns me, Julian said firmly. When someone is humiliated in front of a church full of people, it concerns me. And when a child is made to feel unwelcome, that concerns me too. Turning to Ava, his expression softened. I'm sorry. You shouldn't have been treated that way. No one should. Relief flooded Ava, and tears threatened again, this time, tears of gratitude. Julian looked back at Mrs. Caldwell, voice low but firm. If you ask them to leave, I'll leave with them. And everyone will know why, including Lila, who I'm sure will be devastated to learn this happened at her wedding. Mrs. Caldwell's face shifted from pale to red in seconds. Julian held his ground. After a tense moment, Mrs. Caldwell turned sharply and stalked away. Julian stepped closer to Ava. Are you okay? I think so, Ava whispered, lifting Mia, who hugged her tightly. You didn't cause trouble. Someone else did. Can I at least walk you to your car? Ava nodded, exhausted but grateful. Julian stayed by her side as they walked across the gravel lot. Mia looked up at him curiously. Are you a good man? She asked. Julian smiled, warmth breaking through his serious expression. I try to be. The scene ended with Ava buckling Mia into the car, and Julian handing her his card with a quiet, call me if you need anything. As Ava drove away, watching Julian standing alone in the lot, she felt a spark of something she hadn't felt in a long time, hope. 2 days later, Ava was behind the counter at Willow Creek Diner, balancing plates and trying to remember the order of pancakes, eggs, and coffee cups. It was another long shift in her usual rhythm of working 5 days a week, barely keeping up with bills, and trying to give Mia the life she deserved. Her phone buzzed in her apron pocket. She glanced at the screen, seeing a number she didn't recognize. Hesitant, she answered. Hello? Hi, is this Ava Bennett? A calm, deep voice asked. Yes, who's this? This is Julian Moore. We met at Lila's wedding on Saturday. Ava blinked, surprised. She remembered the man who had stood up for her so fiercely, the one who had defended Mia and her in front of Lucas Caldwell's mother. His voice was steady, warm, and reassuring. I remember, Ava said cautiously. I hope I'm not intruding, Julian continued. I just wanted to check on you and Mia. After what happened. I wanted to make sure you're both okay. Ava felt her throat tighten. No one had ever reached out to check on her like this before. Usually, people either ignored her or judged her. She took a breath and smiled softly. We're okay, she said, her voice steady. Thank you for calling. They talked for 20 minutes, sharing bits of their lives, laughing at little stories, and Julian's ease and kindness made Ava feel something she hadn't felt in a long time, safety. Before hanging up, Julian added, if you're free this weekend, would you and Mia like to join me for lunch? No pressure, just a chance to have a better experience with someone from that wedding. Ava hesitated. She rarely allowed herself such moments, her life was usually too busy or too complicated. But something about Julian made her trust him. Okay, she said quietly. The lunch was simple but perfect. Julian chose a local cafe with sunlight pouring through the windows and fresh flowers on each table. He greeted Mia like an old friend, making her giggle with silly faces and stories about his childhood dog. Ava watched, amazed at how easily he connected with her daughter. Over the following weeks, Julian made time for them regularly. They met at parks where Mia could run freely, small diners where the staff knew Ava by name, and quiet corners of the library where Mia loved to look at picture books. Julian never flaunted his wealth or status. He asked about Ava's life, her dreams, and he genuinely listened. When Ava spoke about working multiple jobs, raising Mia alone, and rebuilding a life she hadn't expected, he offered encouragement without judgment. Mia, who was usually shy around new people, adored Julian instantly. She would run up to him, arms wide, laughing and asking questions about his grown-up adventures. Julian never acted like a visitor in their life. He treated Ava and Mia as if they were already family, with patience, respect, and kindness. And gradually, Ava's walls began to soften. She had been wary for so long, guarding herself against disappointment, against people who would judge her choices. Julian wasn't like that. He respected her independence, her struggles, and most importantly, her love for Mia. Months passed, and what started as friendship began to blossom. Julian shared his own past, revealing a childhood shaped by a single mother who worked tirelessly to raise him. He'd built his company from the ground up, and he never forgot the lessons of compassion and humility his mother had instilled in him. He often said that true success meant nothing if it didn't help others. Ava shared pieces of her story too, the father who had disappeared when he learned she was pregnant, the nights she stayed awake worrying about rent, the dreams she'd once had that seemed forever out of reach. Julian listened without interruption, without pity, only respect. And Mia watched, her heart swelling with the sense that the world could be kind, that good people existed, and that maybe, just maybe, her little family could have something beautiful. 6 months after that first fateful wedding day, Julian asked Ava and Mia to meet him at a small Italian restaurant tucked into a quiet street of Willow Creek. Red checkered tablecloths, candlelight in wine bottles, the kind of place that felt cozy and timeless. Julian made sure Mia had a seat right next to him, smiling as she studied the menu with wide eyes. After dinner, Julian turned to Mia first. No, Mia, he corrected gently, I love your mom very much. And I love you too. I'd like to ask your mom to marry me, but first. I need to know if that's okay with you. Would it be alright if I became part of your family? Mia's blue eyes, hers were hazel like her mother's, but deeper, widened as she considered him seriously. Then, a big smile spread across her face. Yes. Can I be the flower girl? Julian laughed, relief and joy flooding his expression. Absolutely. Then he turned to Ava, pulling out a small ring box. Ava, will you marry me? Tears streamed down Ava's face as she nodded through a smile. Yes, she whispered. Not just yes to a proposal, but yes to the life she had always hoped for, one where love and respect existed not despite her past, but including it. Their wedding was small, intimate, and filled with laughter and love. Only close family and friends attended, including Lila, who had divorced Lucas after discovering how controlling his mother had been. She hugged Ava tightly, whispering, I'm so glad you came to my first wedding, even if it led to this moment. Ava held Mia's hand as they walked down the garden path, her heart full. She remembered that hot, humiliating day at the church, the cruel words from Mrs. Caldwell, and the sting of public judgment. And she remembered Julian stepping forward, standing up for what was right. One person's courage had changed everything. Years later, when Mia asked how her parents had met, Ava and Julian told her the full story. They didn't hide the hard parts, the judgment, the fear, the shame, but they also told her about kindness, courage, and the way love can appear when you least expect it. Julian's company grew, funding scholarships for students who'd had to leave school, housing for single mothers, and support systems for struggling families. Ava went back to school, finishing her degree while raising Mia, eventually becoming a social worker who helped young mothers navigate the challenges she had once faced. And that little white church on the hill? It still stood, surrounded by green fields and oak trees. The story of that summer day became a lesson in courage, compassion, and the kind of love that changes lives, not only romantically, but in the way people care for each other, protect each other, and build families on respect and dignity.